Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andrew Karnikolas. I'm representing Team PolyAtomic. We have myself, producer, our two programmers, Jose and Plato, and our wonderful artist, Yen. So let me tell you about our game. Our game, since the beginning, has been intended for a younger audience, around middle school. And we were always interested in educating, especially regarding science, physics. As Tom was joking earlier, we have changed some of those specifics over the course of the semester, but I'll get into that. So I'd like to introduce our subject matter expert, Katie Brewer. She will maybe put a word in later. And she has generously shared her expertise and her time and her students with us, and they make wonderful playtesters. And they've given us some incredible feedback that we'll get into the specifics a little bit later. And for playtesting, we made it a priority to test with our target audience because this is such an education-based game, and although some of us may have some experience with educating, little experience with educating via games. So it's a little bit of a first run for us. So describing the core gameplay here, we have a chemical bonding themed puzzle game. And so the main actions that the player is engaging in is catching, joining, splitting, and throwing molecules and atoms. Furthermore, the player will step between 4 quadrants on the ground that represent different groups on the periodic table. So that earlier shot you saw was demonstrating the fact that we also have a laser, what we call the tractor beam, pulling atoms in so that the player can then grab them and then combine them into the desired compound. And that's visible there at the top where it says CO2. Player is also being timed. You are hoping for the best time that you can, and that's actually kept track of as well. All right. So for our educational goals, as we said, we're really trying to just increase the students' or the players' familiarity with the terminology, relationships, and other concepts discussed in like a middle school chemistry or physics class. So in order to do that, we needed to engage the player in visual, auditory, tactile, and even reading mediums. And so at the bottom line, we're really just trying to foster an interest in the subject matter and provide a supplement to a traditional curriculum. And we're very proud of the fact that we have scientifically accurate molecular geometry for all of the atoms and compounds in our game. And you'll get a view of all those now. So here are the elements that we have in our game. They're separated into the different groups that we chose. That is group 1, 14, 16, and 17 on the periodic table. So you'll see the little, the card, the information card that will pop up when the player presses the button and they are holding that compound. It'll show you exactly which element you're holding. Same for the compounds. And you'll see this image here to the right of the S, for example. That is pulled from scientific journals indicating what atoms really look like at the nanoscale. And so that's what we tried to replicate with our particle effects. And here you see the compounds, same deal. Geometric, the molecular geometry of these compounds is much different from what we typically see in a lot of textbooks where it's just a ball and a stick connected in various places. It's all three-dimensional, of course. So we really had to think outside the box on how to represent that. Not to mention the fact that we have no true images of these. They're all representations because down there it's too small for photons to reach. Therefore, we don't have any photos of these tiny entities. So that gives you an idea of what you're going to see in our demo. I'd like to talk now about how important playtests have been for us. So on the 6th, we had 3 8th graders from Lake Highland Prep, and they came in and played the game for about 45 minutes each. And they each made very useful observations and comments on how we can improve our game. So for example, Penny said that it was a little bit hard to remember which vortex is which. We have different ones for ionic and covalent bonds. And the player has to decide which is the right one to throw it in after they've made their molecule. So to address that, we've added an electrical particle effect to the ionic vortex. Sophia noticed that it was easy to confuse chlorine and fluorine. They happened to be right next to each other on the periodic table and in our group. So they had very similar coloration. Different, but apparently too similar. So we differentiated them even more. And Gabe, he noticed that elements were entering the vortex from behind, even when they weren't thrown by the player, or sometimes when they were pulled by the player with the tractor beam. So we changed it so that the vortex only accepts compounds thrown by the player. We had a similar experience the next day when FIEA brought in a large group of middle schoolers from a video game to design after-school program. And we were able to test with 9 of those, but it was a much faster, rather hectic kind of playtest session because they were under a time constraint. So we got a little bit more volume, less in-depth debriefing from that. But it was still very useful. For example, whether because it was loud in the room or because the volume was too low, they couldn't hear much of the voiceover. So specifically for the tutorial level, we muted the music. There were many, many missed throws, more than I would expect. Not surprising considering that some of them were playing VR for the first time. So we increased the size of all colliders. And it was too easy to accidentally hit the split button, split molecule. So we remapped it to the opposite end of the trackpad that has the tractor beam. The tractor beam is a very common button. Your thumb is pretty much resting there. So on the opposite side, much less likely you're going to make a mistake like that. Okay, so now we're going to get into our demo. All right, Jose. So here he's showing our brand new menu. You grab the level that you want to play, and you throw it into the vortex.
Welcome to PolyAtomic. Catch, join, and split molecules to construct the indicated objective compound, then throw it into the correct vortex.
Looks like it's got a diatomic hydrogen there. That's the natural state of hydrogen out in the world.
Compounds with ionic bonds
Same
into
with
the blue
diatomic
vortex,
oxygen.
and compounds with covalent bonds into the red vortex. Step into the 4 quadrants to select different element groups on the periodic table.
And just like
This is
that,
water. The simple hydrogen will appear no matter which quadrant you are standing in. H2O is formed from hydrogen and oxygen,
yes.
2 non-metal elements. Therefore, it has a covalent bond.
Okay, covalent bond, throw it in the covalent vortex. Nice job. All right, and for our next level, these are intended to be rather short levels. There's many elements and compounds on the periodic table, as you know. So now we're going to show you carbon dioxide. Standing in the yellow group, pulling in carbon. Yep, there it is. So what's next? Oxygen. And there we go. So that's a covalent bond. Covalent vortex. All right. And we'll show you one more level. Methane. All right, and you've created the basic natural gas, Jose. Nice work.
Two non-metals. Therefore, covalent.
Oh, wrong one. I'm gonna have to make it again. It behooves the wise player to check the bond type on the card before they throw it. Incomplete. There you go. Now check the bond. Ah, covalent. It says right there. Nice job. Okay. So that's our demo for you. Now, if our SME wants to come up and say a few words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Hi. This is so different. I teach middle school, so I'm used to little kids. Thank you all for having me here today. It's been an incredible experience to see this from, I think, the inception. Andrew contacted me, I believe, January, we'll say, thereabouts. And we met briefly after work, and we talked through the whole experience and seeing, you know, from a teacher standpoint, seeing students so excited about a game or an idea, and then watching that idea progress from these beginning things where they were talking about moving through quadrants, that stayed the same, but seeing how it's changed has been really, really amazing for me. I've loved working with them, and I think the level of engagement in their drive to make things authentic was really, really, really valuable. When I brought my students in two separate groups, I mean, their eyes were open to not only a very cool video game experience, but also a career in video games, which I obviously don't have to tell the audience here. What was more rewarding, though, was seeing their parents when they came to pick them up and watching them be able to tour the facility and see that there is a future in this. And so seeing it on so many different levels, from the enjoyment with the video game designers, the players, and then the investors for the players, we'll say. It's been great.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, it's been. Yeah. Thank you.